All right. So calling to order the ranked choice voting ad hoc committee. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order. Where'd that go? Oh, I lost the window. Come back. Suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, section 18, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Easthampton Ranked Choice Voting Ad Hoc Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by connecting via Zoom as described on the meeting agenda. All right. So, public speak. Do we have any members of the public present for this meeting who would like to speak to the committee? Okay. Minutes. Did everyone? Yes, we did get the minutes sent out from last week. Jackie did them. And I will make a motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, just raise your hand if you're in favor.
Okay.
I see that's everyone who's present except Owen. I can't. Owen's both muted and audio is out. So
he wasn't here though, so he'd have to abstain.
That's true. So motion passes anyway.
I wasn't there, Dan, so I'm just abstaining.
Yeah, that's fine. So we do need someone to do minutes this week. Do we have any volunteers?
I think I did them the time before Jackie, so.
All right.
And Jackie did them last time.
Tom or Chris, can one of you guys do minutes for this meeting?
Well, I have to go ahead, Tom.
I'll do them.
Thanks, Tom. I have to leave at 6:15, otherwise it would be no problem.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
We only have 2 meetings after this one, so not too many more minutes.
3
okay.
actually.
Oh, 3 after this one. Yeah. Okay. So our main goal this evening is to discuss outreach and in particular mailer. So I was hoping that Jackie would be on this call because she did some language work on here.
She's on her way. She's just probably stuck in bridge traffic.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll
everyone
expect to see her come on soon then. However, I am going to pull up the latest thing I had and share it. Okay, and then screen share. Okay. So this screen, which I'm going to attempt to make a good size for sharing. Is a current mailer draft. Oops, bar changed its position. This is currently a 2-sided thing. Jackie updated some language on this, which I actually haven't had a chance to, so we'll read through this and look at that. This was a first draft attempt, both at design, layout, and content from me, and some things have already been fixed since the version that was sent out to the committee earlier in the week. I haven't gotten much feedback except from the stuff from Jackie, and this represents some of her changes and some of the informational changes. I think I got some feedback from Barbara, but it was today, and I haven't had a chance to do email at all today. So so we'll just discuss that stuff. So some real basic things are the stuff in the lower right-hand corner where it says pre-sort standard, just postage paid, local postal customer. That stuff is pretty formulaic and basically needs to be there in order for this to be processed by USPS. There's a little bit of layout flexibility with that, but it basically needs to be there in the form that it's in. This is envisioned as a non-folded single 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Depending on the printer, we might be able to get the corners rounded, which is always a nice thing for a big postcard because it prevents them from creasing and folding and getting kind of messed up. So if a printer can do that, I would be inclined to do that. Aside from that, this design, I just made simple black, black ink only. There's no offset printing, no color, no anything else. But that is not something that I am married to. It's just the decision I took when doing this draft.
This side looks good to me, and thanks for fixing the district over to precinct and the hours.
Yep. So yes, the poll hours have been corrected. The precincts have been corrected on both sides. I think all of the factual information, at least on this side, is now correct in terms of the poll hours, the location, all the dates, the Secretary of State website, the deadline to register.
And when do you anticipate this going out? I just wondered if, is it going to be before the Wednesday, October 13th?
So we had discussed this going out on, I'm sorry, just looking at my calendar here. I think that we had discussed this going out on between the 6th and the 8th sometime. Because what we had said is we were going to finalize it if necessary on September 30th.
Okay, yeah, by October 7th, the minutes say.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're going to have another meeting. We're basically have a meeting on the 30th and the 14th, and it was going to go, the mailer was going to be printed and mailed sometime in between that. Now, obviously, if it's finalized sooner than that, the printing can happen earlier, but that was our goal for when it was going to be mailed.
I think it should wait, no printing until the 30th, just in case.
I agree.
There's a withdrawal and we don't even need it.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Yeah, if there's going to be no ranked choice voting contests, then we don't want to send it out because that would be confusing. So, I guess I should interject and say at this point, do we know, have nomination papers been returned for any candidates that would cause any precinct to have a ranked choice voting?
No, hang on. Right now, it's still just the mayor. There's no districts that, we won't know for sure until Tuesday, but
Of course, yeah.
as of this minute, there aren't anything except for the mayor.
Okay. And mayor, do we have 2 or 3 returns so far?
We just have 2 right now.
2, but you said someone else pulled paper, so it's possible
Yeah,
that they
but
do return them.
Yeah, I'm not
Right.
convinced.
Right, we're not counting on it, but it's a possibility, right?
There is a possibility.
Okay.
But even with the mayor and the mayor's competitor, that's a ranked choice voting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, because there's the 2 and the write-in line.
Yeah. So we're good to go, I think, right?
Well,
Unless they withdraw,
but
yeah.
exactly. If one of them withdraws, then it would not be RCV on the ballot.
Yeah.
So, but assuming that those 2 remain on the ballot, then we would have, now it's not ideal from the point of view of, you're ranking 2 plus a write-in, but we still have to move forward with it. And I'm sure people are going to take the opportunity to do at least a first and second choice. And I imagine many people are also going to take the opportunity to do a write-in with their rankings, either as a first choice or as a, second or third. So
I'm thinking that if the third person doesn't come in with papers, that there will at least be some people that write his name in, because I've already been asked about that.
yeah, oh, I'm sure there will be, plus just people writing in their own names.
Well, yeah, but those aren't really going to be anything anyway.
They're not going to add up to anything, but they still need to be accounted for, because if someone ranks themselves as even if someone ranks, Donald Duck first, they're, and they rank a candidate second choice, that needs to be processed to count their vote. I mean, if someone doesn't have a majority, which it's very unlikely, but is possible, even with 2 people on the candidates with a few write-ins, if it's very, very close, that would still need to be processed. So, but I mean, it won't be critical or particularly hard, I don't think. Anyhow, it's looking like we probably will be doing this mailer, so we should operate on the assumption that this is going to go out, because the mayor election probably will be an RCV one. So I kind of want to open this up to any initial impressions. I'm going to kind of circle back onto a few points and may end up deciding that it makes sense to read through all of this as a committee and sort of tweak it. We can get into as much minutia as we want, or as little. But to start with, I do want to also mention the seal, which is not particularly high quality in this version, because I pulled it from the website. So we'll have to, and I can talk offline about this with someone, but we'll have to figure out a print, something at print resolution to use for that, whether it's pulling off a printed document somewhere or finding a file for it somewhere.
I have some, but I'm not, I mean, I have several in my computer. I
Okay.
can send them to you and see if they look better.
I'm sure one of them will probably be better. So if you
Okay.
just send me whatever you have, and
Okay,
I'll pick whatever is the most high resolution for printing.
okay.
Your print's okay. I have it.
Yeah.
Your print's okay, but
Good. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great either. It's going to look a little bit funny so if you have send me a higher one and we can swap it in if we can.
I think it looks okay, but I'll send you what I have in case one's better.
Yeah, please. It's going to look better on a screen like this too. On a printed, it's going to, depending on how it's printed, it could have little dots or gray blocks or all kinds of different things could become apparent. So overall, I guess I'll just open it up to any thoughts, comments, big picture stuff about where we go from here.
I think this side looks fine and we should move to the next side.
Okay.
Well, can we see the rest of this side? Is that it? Is that the bottom part?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is 2 sides, top and bottom. Sorry, I kind of have to scroll in between them for the screen share, but
Okay.
and I can zoom in on stuff too to make it bigger when we start talking about it in detail. But, design wise, I wanted to go something that did not look like a political advertisement and did not look like a commercial advertisement, which is why I kept it sort of black and white and kind of dry, but big clear text headers. I added the QR codes because these days a lot of phones, when you just open the camera, will automatically pick up a QR code that you pointed at. So it can be a very convenient way of dealing with a URL on printed material. For a long time, QR codes were a little bit of a gimmick, but these days, because that functionality is built into so many phones, And for example, the vote by mail request form from the Secretary of State, that's a pretty long URL, and typing that in is pretty onerous. So
Yeah.
if someone does just point their phone at that, it'll take them right to that form, which they can then copy or, email to themselves or print directly from that device.
Yeah.
Same deal from the Secretary of State online voter registration website. I did that on the front.
I'm for it. Printed out URLs are the worst.
Yeah, it's terrible. So for printed material, it felt like a good opportunity to use QR codes so that people who know what to do can just open it. You don't need to, on many phones at least, you don't need to download any sort of an app or know what you're doing other than just point it at the thing. So
Can we go to the bottom, the very bottom, can I vote by mail? Call the city clerk at 413-529-1400 extension 460. Why don't you just put 529-1460? That's what I use. I don't,
Well, because that's not technically our number. I mean, it still works, but this is the correct number. Yep,
defer.
I know. Yeah. So Dan, in that section, I wonder if you could add, you will need to request one in writing. I wonder if we could add that down in the bottom.
so I read that it needs to be requested in writing, but
Because a lot of people just think they can just call up. I know you say download the form, but a lot of people think they can just call up and ask for a ballot to be mailed.
absolutely.
So,
I copied this from the city website, which basically said, if you have questions, call. But it might be, do you think it makes sense to then say, because you had sort of a whole paragraph explaining, like, it needs to be written and signed, and it can't be signed digitally, and all this stuff. But
right.
that seemed like too much information to put.
Oh, yeah, no, it is.
So
Yeah.
I felt
have-
like just.
I have,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say I have a way to keep it about the same word count, but changing the language.
Yep.
Anyone can receive a ballot to vote by mail, request one in writing before,
Ah.
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Yep.
That'll
Yep.
keep it similar.
Okay.
Yep. I like that. Yeah, that can definitely fit in. Yeah, and obviously the link to a form that is just a PDF implies that in order to fill that out, it has to be in writing.
Oh, you'd think so, but I like Jackie's wording. That's
Yeah,
better.
no, I think we should do both. I definitely think both is
Yeah.
is good for that. But sort of my thinking here was either someone goes to a PDF and they get to a PDF and there's really only one conclusion there, which is I complete this PDF, and either I'm tech savvy and I email it to the city clerk, or I print it and deliver it to the city clerk, or I call the city clerk office and the office says, you need to just send us a letter in writing that does that. So I figured there weren't any dead ends, but definitely we should do request one in writing. I think that's good.
Dan, can I ask a question? Is that okay? And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelly Brown, and Barbara asked me to come to the meeting a couple back, and I wasn't able to come. But
Great.
can I ask the question?
Absolutely. Hi, Kelly. And yes,
Nice to see
please,
everyone.
please jump in. We're pretty informal. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think that maybe I'm missing it, but I think it seems like there should be a link or a QR code or something that leads people to the actual ranked choice voting policy. Because if I'm reading this and I'm someone who's paying close attention to detail, like there's parts of this that I think you're trying to be brief about.
Yep.
For the sake of being brief.
Yep.
But if I'm a close reader, I'm saying like, well, what do you mean if my candidate can't win?
Yep.
Or what do you mean my vote counts for the, like that particular line,
Yep.
I think could make some people confused about
Sure.
how this actually works if they've never heard of it before. And so I think having a direct link so somebody can look at the actual, like, at what point do we indicate that a candidate cannot win? How many, what percentage of the vote can they not have? And
Yep.
those types of things that I think people are going to feel, because there's there's all kinds of politics around ranked choice voting. I think it just would be nice to have that link. And
I
then just
agree.
the teacher in me says, don't use a contraction. Right,
Okay.
cannot.
Yeah,
So-
okay, yep, yeah, I like that. I like that. Remove contractions. So regarding the overall process, there's essentially two other definitive documents. One is the city charter, which has
By the
language.
ordinances.
Well, that's the other one. So the
Yeah.
charter has some high level language about RCV, and it has a few kind of low level stipulations in it. But then the ordinance, the city ordinance, is the main document that you're talking about in terms of the nitty gritty. Now that is a legal document, so it's I think we did a pretty decent job with it. It's only 6 pages long. It's not crazy, but it probably goes into certain things that are not totally applicable to someone who, I mean, if someone wants all the details, they're not going to be disappointed by that. Like everything is there, but it might not be the most user friendly in terms of it's not a illustrative example of how the counting process actually plays out and stuff like that. So,
Jackie's got her hand up.
oh yes, Jackie, go ahead.
So I had a suggestion about exactly what Kelly's saying, which is maybe under that last bullet, if you have any questions, blah, blah, blah. We could put a little, I mean, it seems to me that there could be a place on the city website that just has information, all this information in one place about ranked choice voting. And it could just say, for more information about ranked choice voting, and have that
Mhm.
link there so that people can do exactly what Kelly's saying, which is to find out more information.
Yep.
And there's room for that, I think.
I can make up a page under my election, or maybe we can even have it as it gets closer on the main, landing page. But before that time, we could put something in my election page.
Okay,
Um,
that seems like a good idea.
But I'd want help with it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the other option, and I'm not necessarily advocating this, is there are other explainers of RCV as websites or videos or things like that on the internet. They're not tailored to Easthampton in specific, but they are more multimedia or interactive or visual than we as a committee or city are going to be able to do before our first election. So
Dan, if you can maybe find one that's very basic, like
Yeah.
this is how you mark, blah, 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 and just have find a video, and we can embed that into what I put on the website.
Yep.
Something like that.
um,
But something very basic without basically just like how do you mark it or something like that.
well, I mean, is
There's
there a
gotta
lot
be
to say
all-
about a mark? I mean, this is marked the same way that our current ballots are marked. Is it fill the bubble in? I mean,
Right, no, I'm talking about like the ranking and the things like that.
mhm.
Yeah.
You mean sort of step by step, like,
Yeah.
first we're looking in the leftmost box that says first choice, and we are filling in this bubble for who we want. And then if,
Well,
and then-
it just might be worth going on to that ranked choice voting center and see if they have anything.
okay.
I mean,
Because a lot of the education has to do with how it's counted, what the benefits are, the nitty gritty of the tabulation, and not so much the like
oh, okay.
how it's completed, because I mean, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it can be spelled out step by
Yeah.
step, but it's
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
once you see this, I mean, I don't know how much more can be said about it other than the things that we already have in the instructions, like you don't have to rank everybody. Don't skip ranks. I don't know. Don't give two people the same ranking. I mean, there's do's and don'ts. But as I suppose a video, like, yeah,
Okay.
I'll see what I can find.
Okay,
in terms of
I see what you mean. Yeah.
media there, but and that's what a little bit of what I tried to do in the caption for this part, where it's sort of prose explaining like what you're looking at, you know.
Yeah. Can we maybe start to go over this like paragraph by paragraph rather than
Yes,
jumping
yes.
around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before we do that, are there other big picture things that people want to bring up? Yes.
Well, I
Jack.
just see that Kelly has her hand up.
I was just gonna say, I would like to just reaffirm that I think the place where people get most confused is
Mhm.
how the actual winner is determined.
Yep.
And so at what point does my first choice vote get thrown out?
Yep.
At what point does second choice votes start being brought in? And to me, that's the part where people get anxious because it's new.
Right.
So that would be the part I think that would be really important for people to have some information about.
So I'm going to very briefly screen share, or actually, I think what I'm going to do is paste it into this one because it's already screen shared. So this is a mailer that was sent to the city based on as part of the campaign to enact ranked choice voting. And the reason that I'm sharing this is, oh, you know what? We didn't put it on this in the end. So a funny story is that this initially had exactly what you were talking about, which was sort of a 1, 2, 3 thing that I liked, and then over the course of developing it and some other impact, some other input was removed. But essentially, I mean, that is something that we could decide to put on here, and I like, and it's sort of a step 1, 2, 3, and that step 1, 2, 3 is: does any candidate have a majority? If so, they win. If no, then the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and the ballots that, any ballots that had that candidate as their first choice are counted for whoever's the second choice on those. And then it loops. It just goes back to, okay, now does anyone have majority? If not, you do the same thing. So that can be presented with very few words, either 2 bullet points or maybe 3 bullet points. And pretty much all of the process is contained within that little recursive function of, does someone have a majority? If not, drop 1 and then count again. That's what the round situation is. So it's not a complicated or wordy process, and that's something that I could attempt to, either with 1 or 2 sentences or a little section or a little chart even, attempt to illustrate if people feel like it is really important to give that granular what exactly is happening to your particular vote in the tabulation, which from my first draft on that other mailer was something that I thought was very important, and then it got replaced with other sort of broader language. What do other folks think about that in terms of how important is it that appears on here as a little specific? This is the tabulation, in as few words as possible, this is the tabulation process.
So my first thought was, do we need to have the "can I vote by mail" block? Because that's not really within the scope of this mailer, as important as it is. And so when you ask that question, I find myself saying, I think the "can I vote by mail" is more important than a little graphic showing the minutia of what you were saying. But I think a little QR code in the bottom as a 5th bullet point for more info on RCV, and
City
then
website.
having that graphic. Yeah. Although maybe just having the QR code would be problematic too, because not everyone knows what
Could
those
you
are.
maybe,
No, there won't ever be a QR code that does not also have a URL next to it.
Okay.
That's just, I am firmly against that.
Okay.
So the QR code is purely a convenience for
Dan,
not
do you
having to
think-
type it in. So, yeah.
do you think the vote by mail thing can somehow go on the first page? Can
I
it,
was wondering the same thing.
if we can, because
Yeah,
maybe
perhaps.
somehow it can be rearranged.
I mean, I could make this stuff here a little bit smaller.
Yep.
I might be able to shrink this a little bit too and kind of work it in on the front.
Right, because that kind of all kind of goes with the process of, and then on the backside, you could concentrate on
Is
the,
just RCV. Yep.
yeah.
So that's a possibility, is like if we can squeeze vote by mail onto front, and then we would say, you know, add tabulation steps or image perhaps.
I do think you have to be careful on the back with, about having too much text.
I agree.
It kind of looks like a lot of text even now.
Yep.
And I think you gotta keep that in mind because people are not gonna read it.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, this is maybe more philosophical than we need to get into, but I will say some of my thinking about this is, even if there is slightly more text than the average person is going to read when it comes to their door, doing this is to stave off some of the well, I was never told about any of this, or the city made no attempt to educate me about this, or this is a complete surprise. You know, by proactively providing the information, even if it is more information than someone decides to read, I feel like we have at least given people the tools that they need, whether they decide to take all of them or not. I feel like, so it's more important to me that we have a relatively complete set of information that we've provided to people than it is that some of them aren't going to read all of it. But to that point, I think your feedback is good in the sense that we want to make this as readable as possible for the most number of people.
Right, well, maybe some graphic, you know,
Yep.
some things, so it's not like just all like text,
Yeah.
text. I
Right.
like the little box down at the bottom.
Yep.
I mean, maybe, you know, you know, and I like the graphic up on the top, but
Yep.
you know, so if it can be kind of broken up or, you know, done so it's not just all writing.
Well, and I mean, that's partially why I tried to do some bulleted stuff, because it's a little different. And then also, I do think that if we do a tabulation thing, I can present it, even if it's just blocks, if it's like a little flow chart or something, it can look more graphic. It can look a little graphically different than just another paragraph that talks about the steps. It can be like a little loop, or like a I think I can come up with something that is good, a little more flow charty for that, because, you know, as Kelly said, I think that is going to be a big point of curiosity of like, what exactly is the flow chart of my vote? And it's not for single winner RC, you know, IRV, it's not terribly complicated. So I think those are a good idea. Before we are going to just go read over the pros here. But before we do that, are there other sort of somewhat high level thoughts or concerns? And this isn't your last chance to bring any of that up. It's just, I kind of want to.
So Dan, one of the things I suggested when I emailed you last night, I think, was, can we put somewhere on here something that says, to see a sample ballot, go to this link.
Yep.
Or go, you know, places where people can see the sample ballot, because I think that's helpful.
Yep. So I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, but a sample ballot for the election is always posted on the election page on the website, like as soon
Yeah,
as
because
you get it, right?
yeah, I get them as PDFs and I usually will put them up on the page,
Right.
my page, yeah.
So I think that is sort of covered under a general, for more info, for more detailed information that can fit on this card, essentially go to this Easthampton website page. And that page can have whatever more details we want. And at the very least can say, here is the relevant part of the city charter. So you can go read it. Here is the relevant part of the ordinance. It's only 6 pages, so you can go read it. Here is a sample ballot that shows what the RCV race is going to look like. I feel like that can all sort of be contained within the go to the city clerk elections page, and here's the link for it. Does that seem good, or do you think we need sort of a separate? Yeah, I see thumbs up.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that I think that we can actually kind of shoehorn several of these things under there. Like, do we need a whole vote by mail section? Questions about ranked choice voting, voting by mail, or any other dang thing?
Yep.
Visit the city elections page. Here's your QR code. Like it doesn't have to be a.
I agree. The reason that I put these other things on here is because as important I think it is to educate people about RCV, I think that there are significant people who are not even really up on city elections. Like it's not even on their radar. They're sort of
Right.
COVID and back to school and everything is just sort of there. So
I mean, I'm inclined to agree that some sort of not ranked choice voting, partially for that reason, but also because it sort of contributes to the air of it being official rather than partisan, which is something that we were concerned about. But I think that maybe we can condense some of it by directing people to the city elections page.
Yeah, it's true. So what do other folks think about that in terms of, right now we have sort of a little block, which may in fact be able to be made smaller. But for specifically voter registration.
I like both of those things on there because people will go, oh, well, I didn't know that the deadline, if they get something in the mail, they're going to be more likely to look at it than go to the website. I like the 3 things there that you have that aren't related to ranked choice voting, because it's kind of does a dual purpose on this mailing. It tells people there's an election, and there's people that only vote I don't know. I like
just looking at it. I mean, considering the size of the mailer, the text on the front is going to be very large. So I think there is an opportunity if we want to add or add more information. I think that we can condense, or decrease the size of that without making it unreadable.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
Well, I'm already kind of imagining, based on the feedback here, that we're going to try to basically find a home for the vote by mail block on the front and use the additional space on the back to do kind of a little flowchart RCV tabulation thing. It's still pretty simple. We're not getting into the weeds, but we're just giving a little graphic or explanation of that thing.
Can we keep this shape? I just find it very satisfying for some reason.
What shape?
Swoop.
A little what shape?
I like the shape. The corner swoop is very satisfying to me.
Oh, here. Yeah.
That's just a personal request.
Well, so the tabulation box could inhabit this separate box. I mean, it is sort of a little separate wonky thing. So it could live here. I do think it's nice how it breaks it up, because it makes it less like, oh my God, there's a giant text wall. It's like there's a separate section with a big header.
I have a little bit of trouble relating to not wanting to read a page, but I'll take your word for it. I mean, I read 10,000 pages in a year.
If I received this, I would immediately read the whole thing. But I understand that some people probably wouldn't.
I know, but I'll just take your word for it.
So.
They won't believe me.
Okay,
I mean,
so
yeah, like I said, I'll believe you. I just don't
So-
get it.
so before we start talking about more of the actual words in this back block also, I want to look at the example with folks because I made a lot of choices here that are specific. And there's one thing that I noticed that I didn't like that I wanted to see if anyone else noticed or cares about. So first of all, like the names and the example data here, like, are people okay with this? I kind of used the like very generic names and then I gave them like plant fruit names.
I was just thinking that they're not gonna have a barbecue on Example Street this year.
It's going to be tense on Example
I
Street.
know, right? It's fine. I'm just like, yikes.
Right, the fact that they're all neighbors. Like,
Exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I know it's, well, there's two per side of the street.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the only thought I had when I read it over is like, could we make the names less Anglo-centric? I mean, I know we're in Easthampton, but it's a little bit like white bread boomer names.
Yeah,
No
it
offense
is,
to white
yeah.
boomers. I'm related to a
So-
lot of them.
So the first names are taken, so I'm a kind of a technical person, and so there's
No, I'm interested to hear this, please.
the first names are taken from a sequence of names that is typically used when explaining concepts of cryptography of all things. So when you're explaining how cryptography works, your examples almost always involve Alice and Bob. And then if you have a third party, it's Carol, and a fourth party is Dave. So it's the ABCD. I didn't really know how to pick generic names, and that was the best example that I could think of, was this sort of very standard way of naming people in cryptographic examples.
I like your impulse to refer to literature.
Yeah. So it's sort of to prior art of like how do people pick examples for things? Because sometimes you see something that's obviously not names. You see like Butterfinger or candy corn or things like that. Or you see.
I don't need to make it too twee. I mean, like, I don't have a problem with the name of vegetables.
Yeah, no, it is very like first grade white name. And then I for last names I was like, okay, we're gonna just pick fruit and vegetables that start with the same letter.
They're fine.
Barbara, yeah, I think they're
It's like, they're just
Okay.
names. It
Yeah.
doesn't
I
matter.
mean,
but I
they're
wanted them to be
fine,
obviously not someone's real name
Right.
either.
Well, I think
Like,
that's pretty
I dispute
clear.
the assertion that representation is not important in all spheres. I mean, I think that it is. So
well,
that's my opinion.
So, and here's the one problematic thing that I noticed that has to do with representation, which is I noticed that the two, and this is just a coincidence, but the two ranks on here are for the both male associated names, and the two female associated names don't have a rank next to them. And as soon as I noticed that, it bugged me. And I was just sort of like, why is this example person only voting for men? So, I thought,
I mean, that's easy enough to change.
exactly. I was
think
just going to swap one of them to be not male. But the other sort of maybe strange decision I made with this was to have the first choice be a write-in.
no, I like it.
Part of the reasoning for that was if this first election is in fact only two names on the ballot, by having a write-in on the example, it's sort of killing a few birds with one stone, and also implicitly making the case for why you might want RCV in an election that has only two official candidates printed on the ballot, which is, oh, you can then also put a write-in. So I feel like it answered that question without addressing it in words. Assuming that I think what I'll do is I'll change like the second choice here to Alice. And then it doesn't at least have the gender problem. Are there other specific things that anyone would want.
Well, but I have a question for your example with the first choice with Dave. If they don't fill in the circle first choice, but they write in the name, does that still count as the first choice, even though they don't fill in the circle?
That would depend on whether they do other circles or not.
No,
So
if they do no circles at all, but just write in, then that would,
correct.
the write-in candidate be
Yes.
first choice.
So if they fill in no circles at all, then, but they do write a write-in, then that write-in will be interpreted as their first choice.
Okay, and only choice.
And only choice, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you know, and this is the kind of thing that happens in the ballot duplication process and the write-in resolution process. But a ballot that had no circles filled out would not be scannable. And so it would end up becoming a duplicated ballot. And in the process of doing that, the panel is going to decide what the intent of the voter is. And they're then going to make that into a machine readable ballot so it can be tabulated. So in that case, the ballot would get duplicated and there would be a circle filled next to that write-in vote. Just so the machine can see like, okay, yes, this is a first choice vote. If there was a case, for example, where someone wrote in a name, didn't fill out a circle, and then gave a first choice to a different candidate, I imagine that would override whatever write-in that they did. And then in a weird case where like someone does a write-in, but doesn't fill out the circle next to it and then gives a number 2 to a different one, like there's only a number 2 circle, I think that would be up to the panel to decide, to kind of debate and decide like, what is this voter intending? You know, if they decide that there isn't clear intent, then, you know, it would be blank for that race. It isn't going to get made up by the panel. But if the panel decided, no, I think this is pretty clear that the write-in is their first choice, and, you know, the bubble filled next to the other name is their second choice, then they'd fill in the first choice bubble next to that write-in, and that would be the first choice. So that's why we have a human process to determine unmachine readable ballots, and why that process is also open to the public for observation, because it has to be transparent. But you do get into, I mean, and that's the same for hand counting ballots today with plurality voting. If someone, you know, draws a weird squiggly circle around one of these and the machine can't read it, someone has to interpret that and say, okay, this is what the voter intended. So these are all things that are great questions for anyone going into this, and also things that we have certainly thought of and are ready to handle. Yes, Kelly.
So I just have 2 really quick questions. The first
Great.
is this is exactly how it's going to be laid out on the ballot? I mean, to me, that seems to be the most important thing, that it's going to say for second, third choice that the numbers are going to be in the boxes, that it's going to lay out.
This is
exactly
the literal exact layout with the same fonts, the same spacing, the same bubbles, the same justification of text, etc. This is taken exactly from a sample ballot generated from LHS, our vendor, for an OpScan ballot. So this is what it will look like, yes.
Great, because that, to me, that seems to be the most important. And then I think if you wanted to find a middle ground around names, because I do think representation, it can be important, is to do something like take hurricane names and just pick 3 names or 4 names that seem to be a little bit more diverse in their setting. I don't know. Again, for the sake of over participating, when I'm not really on the committee, but that might be like a way.
No. I very much welcome your suggestions here.
Hurricane names is smart. I like that.
Yeah, and you can just pick a chunk of the names that seems to be a little bit more diverse than.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. That's just my strange suggestion.
I'm gonna investigate that, and I can kind of see what I can find, and then we'll see how the committee likes it. But I like that suggestion. Thank you. It's a good source for names, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice because somebody else made the list and it probably went through committees and.
Right. Exactly.
You
Yep.
know, use somebody else's brain. Why not?
Exactly,
Thing I always
exactly.
wonder about where those names come from.
Where they come from, yeah. I'm sure there's a book about there. But
Apparently there's a committee. I think I remember. Yeah, and they do the whole year at once.
yeah, it's
Anyway.
predetermined. Okay. The only thing that I removed from this that is going to appear on the ballot in some cases is there's a little text that says candidate for re-election next to the person who's currently in office if they're running for office again. I took that out because it's a fake example and I didn't want to like bias one of the names as being like, oh, we're saying that Nicole LaChapelle is Alice Apple. It just got confusing to me in my own head of like, how is that going to make things easier because it's going to be there, or is it going to make things harder because it's open to more weird interpretation? So I took it out in the sense that none of these people are incumbents, but on the actual ballot, yes, there's a little text in one of these boxes that says candidate for re-election.
I will concede that perhaps people might not misreading those two words.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's quite small and it's pretty obvious what it is when it appears. Okay, cool. That's some good feedback there. Let's read through everything. There's not enough prose on the front that I don't think we have to like read through this. If anyone had any specific wording or formatting for this, you know, kind of like throw it out there, but there's not very much to it. So for the back, guide to ranked choice voting, we sort of have there's sort of three parts to this. There's like several paragraphs of general first information. There's this sort of bulleted some important points information. And then there's sort of this caption with the example ballot section. So I kind of think of these as three little sections. So, and this is, again, this is the latest, Jackie, thank you for doing some editing. So this represents sort of the latest text that we have here. So I'm going to just read through this and we're going to talk about them. I think we'll talk about them as whole sections, okay? So Easthampton voters will use ranked choice voting for the first time this year for the mayoral election, where two candidates appear on the ballot.
I mean, if we're being strict, you want a comma after election.
Sure, yep. No, we don't want comma after election. No, these will use ranked choice voting for the first time. No, I don't think we want a comma. Do we?
I don't think it's.
It's a subordinate clause.
Easthampton
Right.
voters will use ranked choice voting, comma, for the first time this year. I don't know. That feels like a funny pause to me.
Well, there's a lot trying to happen in this sentence.
There is,
It makes
and
sense,
also,
though.
I think at least where two or more. I
Okay,
think
so
it-
you have to decide whether you're speaking specifically about this election or about elections in general going
Right.
forward.
And I think that may have been something that in Jackie's revision of this, because I was speaking generally, and then I think Jackie, you changed it to be sort of specifically about this exact election.
I think it should be about this election, which,
Yep.
because that's what people are voting on now. And,
Yep.
and I also think the next sentence the district council seat should be included in there, whether you just take out that sentence, the second sentence or what. But you've got to mention the district council seats too.
I think
Originally, in Dan's defense, originally that was in there, but I took it out to shorten up because there was so much text.
Right.
So, yes.
Well, I mean, you could just take the whole sentence out.
Yeah, I think the second sentence is fine. You know, we're using it for the mayoral election. You mentioned the mayoral election. We're not using it for the other ones. We don't have to mention the other ones.
Right.
Mm.
in my opinion.
So does it make sense to say just Easthampton voters will use ranked choice voting for the first time this year for the mayoral election, period?
It
Yeah.
does.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And then basically strike the second sentence entirely,
Yep.
right? Get rid
Yep.
of all that.
And
Okay.
I would leave that in. I'm sorry. I would leave that second sentence in. That was one of the things you tried to add to my thing that I had done.
Hmm.
And I didn't want that on the senior center thing because it would just confuse them. We were talking about just ranked choice voting, but for this general mailing, I think it's important for people to know that the four at-large city council and the school committees are not included in the ranked choice voting.
And district council.
Right.
Well,
and-
if
and
we throw
district-
district council in there, then,
So,
Or-
I mean,
Well, you could
yes,
say
we're not
for
using it this year yet, but at some point it will happen in the future. And then that opens you up to people being like, well, I thought we only use it for mayor.
Right.
So,
Well, but we're talking about this election though.
yeah, that's in the future. That's not in existence now.
Well, it is
Yeah.
in existence now.
it is in the ordinance now.
But we don't have, but we are only going to be using it if there's enough candidates on the ballot.
Right.
And the reason we wouldn't be using it this year is because none of the precinct seats are contested. Unfortunately, I'm sure COVID has a lot to do with that, because who wants to run a political campaign?
No, that's the way it's been pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
But whatever.
But I hope that to see more in the future. I witnessed one, my first election in Easthampton.
I mean, we've had a couple, but not very many.
Right.
Anyway,
So to speak to Ray, to speak to and to everyone, I think that, you know, I do like the idea. Is this educating people in general for this election and the future, or is this stating what's happening in this particular election? And if the latter, then I would be inclined to well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think both are valuable. We just have to decide.
Yeah.
And that way we're clear.
Yeah. We could say Easthampton voters will use ranked choice voting for the first time this year for the mayoral election. Other positions on the ballot will not use ranked choice voting.
this year,
Yeah, this year.
Love it.
it could be, that could work.
Yep, it's great.
I think that helps clarify the next part too, where is in general, Easthampton will not use ranked choice voting for at-large city council and school committee races. Like, is that across the board? Policy, or is that?
Yeah.
Currently, yes. Yep.
Okay.
So Kelly, so part of the reason for that is right now, at-large city council and school committee are multi-winner races. So it's that vote for 4, vote for 6. And the Easthampton RCV currently is only for single winner races. And part of the reason for that is that the tabulation is very different between the two. The ballot is almost exactly the same. Like, from the voter's point of view, voting is very, very similar. But educating people about tabulation for multi-winner races is a very different ballgame.
Yeah. Well,
So-
what it comes down to is what got through the charter review committee.
Correct.
And the charter review committee approved it for mayor and precinct races, but not the other ones.
Yep. Now, that does not mean that the city won't adopt it for these other races, because it could, and it very well may.
You just have to convince somebody else to reconvene a charter review committee.
Yeah, there's a number of ways that it could come about, but at the moment, those are it doesn't matter how many candidates there are, those are never going to be RCV races under the current law. Ray, you had your hand up?
yeah. In that first sentence, so why aren't you mentioning the 5 5 precinct city councilors?
Because they're not going to be ranked choice voting at this election.
Right, because there have to be more than one declared candidate for it to be an RCV
Okay.
race.
Okay, so there are none of them have opposition?
Not
Right now.
as of right now.
But if they do, you'd have to add that, wouldn't you, to this sentence?
You would.
Okay.
But what Barbara has said is it's unlikely that that's the case.
Yeah, it's really only like, there's just a couple days left. But you
And has
never know.
anyone pulled papers for those?
No,
So someone in the last few days would have to pull papers, get all the signatures, and return them to Barbara.
Well,
correct.
district council, it's only 20 signatures, so it's not.
No, it's
Yeah.
50. It's
Oh, it's
50.
50.
50, pardon me.
It's
still-
happened.
still-
It's
still doable.
happened.
Yeah.
Do you think it would clarify just if you change the where to because in that first sentence, if you said Easthampton voters
Oh.
use ranked choice voting for the first time this year for the mayoral election because more two candidates appear on the ballot? Because it is confusing to me that the other elections are missing,
Mm,
because then you talk about the other ones and it seems to me either you take out the other ones altogether or you, I don't know, I just wonder if a
I like that.
because is a little bit more clear as to why you're saying that.
I like that, actually.
Yep.
Because two candidates will appear on the ballot.
Yeah, because at least two candidates will appear on the ballot, and that way you're sort of indicating that that's the trigger.
Okay.
Future
Ranked
proofing
choice
it.
voting.
What do you think about at least versus just because two? Because one is sort of getting into that more general education of like, this is the cutoff. I don't dislike it, but it kind of changes the tone of it a little bit, or it makes it a little, because saying at least two candidates appear on the ballot is making it more general, because it's sort of speaking to a larger pool of elections than this particular one.
Yeah, so can can we decide? And then we'll know what to do and we don't have to talk everything around in circles. Like we can just decide, is it a general document or is it a specific document?
Well,
And then we'll
it-
make
it-
all our decisions going forward.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, but it's already serving multiple, it's already serving multiple purposes and roles. And so I
Then
think
perhaps we should just say it's a general document.
I think it's a little general.
I mean, I can imagine somebody sticking this on their fridge, but I'm a big dork, so.
Yeah,
um,
it's a little general. It's about a specific election, but it's also teaching
All
and
right,
introducing concepts
then
to people.
because at
so,
least two.
yeah.
All right.
But then will some people be confused? Well, you've got, 6 people running for school committee and 6 people running for at-large council. Why aren't they ranked choice voting?
Mhm.
Will there be people thinking that?
Perhaps.
If you don't like this sentence, please go to our website where you can read 6 pages.
Could you add any to the next sentence so that makes clear that, so Easthampton will not use ranked choice voting for any at-large city council or school committee races? Like, to me, the difference is that the reason why you put that second sentence is to say right now, we're not using ranked choice voting at all. Whereas the other races, 2 candidates triggers it. To
Yep.
me, that's the differentiation between those 2 sentences. So I don't know how you make that clear, but I think maybe.
Can you say Easthampton does not use
Mhm.
ranked choice voting?
Oh, yeah, then it makes it a general statement, policy, policy statement.
I'm gonna just, this is hard. I can't share 2 windows at once. So I am typing this, but I can't edit it in line in here. I think what I'm gonna do is this, actually. I'm going to make a window, and then I'm going to share that window. So now do you guys see a little yellow box?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Figure out how to move it. Okay. And then I'm going to paste this into it. Okay, great. So now we're seeing the text in an editable way. The first time this year, because the mayor election. Oops, no,
what's there, yeah.
At least 2 candidates. And then does. Okay, so how does that look?
Still makes me wonder about the district council race. You know, just like, where are they?
Yep.
I mean, I think that, aren't we covering that by just saying because at least 2 candidates will appear on the ballot? I mean, unless we want to
Good.
explicitly spell out, like, all the district councilors are running uncontested, so we won't be using ranked choice voting there.
Yeah,
We could
know,
say precinct.
district, you gotta call them districts.
No, Are they,
Oh.
I thought they were
Bill.
precincts now.
No, not until the charter the act is approved.
It still isn't approved?
No, they're having a hearing next week, I think.
Okay,
Oh my
so on the top here,
Oh,
sorry, it said all precincts vote in the same place. Should I
Right,
change that back?
which is correct.
Oh, okay.
That's correct. But according to the charter as it stands at this moment, they're still district councilors.
Got it. That's confusing,
Yeah.
but I got it.
But we have voting precincts.
Got
Well-
it. Got it. Okay. So district counselor. I don't know how to spell counselor.
CILOR. CIL.
It's yeah, no S.
District counselor, council races are unopposed.
Eh,
That's confusing.
I don't like that.
No.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's better just to leave it off.
I think so, because we can't say it in a way that's both brief and clear.
Right, yeah, it just gets confusing.
So, yeah. I mean, if
Can I
Tom
make
has
it-
way,
can I
we
make
would all
another
be.
suggestion?
Yeah.
Which is that if you leave that in there in parentheses, editing by committee is really painful and
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah.
So maybe we put in things that we're thinking about to mull over.
Yep.
And for the next iteration, we can have, like, if you trust Dan and me to kind of tweak the language a little bit more, we'll come up with some options for the next time we look at it.
Good
Mhm.
idea.
I trust.
I mean, this committee also has quite a bit of, Jackie, just to give you a little history, quite a
Yeah,
bit of experience doing editing by committee because we did the whole
Okay.
ordinance that way. So
I guess it just
does-
makes it insane, but that's okay.
yeah, no, it's a little crazy making, but we have also all the experience, at least with this committee, to have seen the light at the end of the tunnel, which is that
Yeah.
we have arrived at language that we all felt comfortable with in the end. And that was a 6-page document too. So, you know, I know I have the faith that we will arrive at something, but I agree with you that it is its own thing, editing by committee. But we are also getting down to the line where we don't have that many more opportunities to reconvene as a quorum to decide on things. So if there's anything that we can knock out in a meeting, I am in favor of that over pushing it down the road, because time is tight at this point. So.
Yeah, and I think the September 30th meeting, the next meeting isn't it kind of late? Shouldn't we have that earlier?
Didn't we go over this whole calendar last?
Yeah,
meeting?
no, we will only change it to be earlier if we have an absolute reason to do so, but in the absence, not in the abstract. In the abstract, it's fine, because we have the timeline figured out in terms of the amount of time we need to print and finalize stuff. So I feel pretty good about these two. I'm not opposed to this. I don't necessarily think we need to mention the district council races.
Yeah. Good.
It's fine.
Onward.
Yep.
Ranked choice voting requires that the winning candidate gets a majority of votes, not just the most votes. It also gives voters the opportunity to indicate preferences they have beyond their first choice.
Do you want to put like 51% in parentheses or something like that.
No, it's not 51% though. It's 50% plus one.
Well, what a,
Or it's
More than 50%.
yeah.
Yeah.
whatever.
But
Your poor cursor.
I didn't want it to be bold.
okay, I was a math major, and to me, isn't majority and most mean the same things?
They do not mean the same thing at all.
You could have
Not
6
the
people.
most votes.
Yeah.
Most and the most are different arguments.
Yes,
Ain't it
actually,
true?
you're right. Yeah. So maybe should this be bold?
Oh yeah, there you go. That's nice.
Yeah. So plurality voting is such that if there's two people, someone will have a majority. But if there's more than two people, and that accounts for, write-ins or a third or more declared candidates, then the person who receives the most votes in many cases will not receive a majority. They will receive a plurality, which is a word that I don't think is a household word. I don't think most people know the definition of plurality, but it does specifically mean a system where you have the most votes, but you don't have a majority of the votes. So this was my attempt to, in a very simple sentence, draw a distinction between these two things that most people think of as the same thing, but by writing it this way implies that no, they are not in fact the same thing, which is not at all a mistake, because as worded, and I do think bolding the here actually does make a big difference and does really help that.
That sentence sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay.
The next one, if you take out they have, does it still?
It also
Sure.
considers the opportunity to indicate preferences beyond their first choice. I like that too. Yep, that's better. Your ballot will look slightly different for contests that use ranked choice voting. As seen in the illustration, additional columns will appear to the right of the list of candidates.
Fine.
Cool. Like that. Let's pull up these guys. Copy, copy, copy.
Just one last thing on that. Do you want to put the ballot, or, I mean, you put your ballot,
Oh yeah.
like the ballot,
What do you guys think?
just to make it more.
Well, the rest of it is in third person, so Barb is right.
Okay. Yep, you're right. The ballot. Although, just to throw a wrench in things, this next section is all use.
Well, it doesn't matter.
So let's talk about this a little bit. Here are some important points. 4 points, and we may add one to the bottom as we talked about earlier. You are never required to rank more than one candidate. You may rank as many or as few candidates as you want to. If you choose to rank a candidate, yep.
Can I just say, you're never required to rank, do you want like a parentheses that says vote for? Because I think, yeah, I know
don't.
that,
Oh, I hear a phone. Okay.
yeah, sorry,
That's okay. I try to avoid that language because this is still instant runoff voting, and ranked choice voting is still a one person, one vote system. You
Sure.
as an individual get one vote. So I don't like referring to it as you're voting for more than one candidate, because you're not. You're ranking the candidates, but you're still
Okay.
voting for one in any given runoff round. And it's still one person, one vote. So for that specific reason, I don't want to phrase it that particular way. I don't know, that doesn't mean there might not be a better way of phrasing it, but I don't like to ever imply that you're voting for more than one candidate, because you're not.
fair, more than fair.
Okay. If you choose to rank a candidate, doing so will neither hurt nor help any candidate that you ranked higher than that candidate.
I'm not crazy about nor. I'd rather have it just say or.
Okay.
That's just me.
So if I change this to not hurt or help,
Yeah. I think that,
I don't want to write neither hurt or help. That just feels
Yeah.
really awkward to
will
me.
not hurt or help.
Not hurt
I
or help.
don't
is
think
good.
that there's anything at all wrong with neither nor.
I don't either, but I'm
I think-
simpler language. I slightly prefer this. For a like, I also, Sarah, I'm sort of thinking as if I'm targeting this to like 5th or 6th grade
Yep.
level.
Do you want my
Um,
6th grader to read it? I can provide that service.
Nice. But just in general for the language, it's like I'm trying to keep it sort of slightly school book like. Not hurt or help any candidate. I like it like that more slightly. So if your favorite candidate cannot, if your favorite candidate cannot win, then your vote will count for your next favorite candidate, and so on, until some candidate gets a majority of the votes and is declared the winner. This particular sentence kind of speaks to Kelly's concern about the specifics. How exactly does this process happen?
Do we want to say first ranked over favorite so that we can keep the language consistent?
Yeah, we could.
do you not
other
want to open that because it's a little bit technical?
Another option is we could ditch this entire point because it's going to be addressed in the little box.
All right, then do that.
Okay.
I'm in favor of that as well.
That makes sense. I was about to say that.
Boom. If you have any questions about how to mark your ballot correctly, trained poll workers will be available to help you on election day.
Hopefully.
No, they will be.
Hopefully.
Do you want to say and train poll workers and volunteers?
Well,
Since-
that
No.
I feel like is more hopeful.
No, people
Okay,
who
'cause
are
that's
working
going
at the
to be there.
polls, whether you're a volunteer or you're a poll worker, you're a poll worker.
Okay,
Yeah. I just know that there probably will be volunteers to
Yeah.
assist, but they might not be volunteers every minute that polls are open.
Yeah.
And I don't want to imply that there necessarily will be. So I hope there are, but I don't know that there will be for a fact. And we want to add one more to this. This is just going to look like a different bullet, but
Is election day, now Sarah, that you're the expert on this, is election day capitalized?
It sure is.
Yep.
nice. Boom. Oops. Okay.
Federal
So then,
holiday.
so then the last one is for more information, please visit.
Blah, 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 blah.
What do we think? Is that enough, or should it say more?
No, that covers it.
Should be fine.
Okay.
Is
Great.
that the part about like how ranked choice voting actually works?
No, that will be in a
Separate
box.
graphic.
Yeah, that'll be a
Okay.
separate, it'll either be text or a graphic or flowchart. I'll make something kind of nice. And that doesn't mean it won't also be on this Easthampton website page too, but the Easthampton website will point people to the ordinance. It'll point people to the charter. It'll have all the election information. So, maybe this should say, for more election information, please visit.
There you go.
And I can make a little QR code for
Could-
that link.
Do you
too.
want to put Easthampton election information? Or I guess, yeah,
Only going out to Easthampton people, residences.
I mean, it is, except it will go to
it'll,
some West Hampton residences because, and they're just gonna have to ignore it.
oh,
We can't exclude those.
wow.
Well, because West Hampton is the same zip code.
Oh, we have to
and-
pay for all those that go to West Hampton too?
Well, not many
There's
are
like 4
going,
people that live there.
yeah, not many people in West Hampton will get it because I think West Hampton, I think it's 3 postal routes and
Okay,
2 of them are entirely in West Hampton. So they won't get it. But there is 1 postal route that spans both East Hampton and West Hampton.
Mm.
In order to include those people at the vastly reduced price of this mailer, it has to also go to those West Hampton people.
Wow,
So
okay.
it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Maybe we can, maybe I can ask at the post office when I drop them off, like, hey, can you leave off the West Hampton folks from this? I don't know if they would be willing to, or if the carrier.
It's
would
worth
be
an
allowing it,
ask.
but yeah, it's worth an ask because it's you know, it's better than not to have them not get it. But it also doesn't feel, it feels like it's more important for the East Hampton people on that route to get it than the West Hampton people to not get it. So, and it's only one route that spans the 2. So
It also says Easthampton a lot of times on here and has
It
the
does.
city's seal. So
it does.
Okay,
Yep.
that's fine.
Okay, cool.
the URL is going to say easthamptonma.gov.
That's true. Yep. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Okay. And then the last little bit of text on here, this is what ranked choice voting will look like on the ballot. In this example, the voter chose to write a name and address on the write-in line and then marked that person as their first choice. The voter also made a second choice from among the candidates listed on the ballot, but decided not to make a third or fourth choice. Pretty straightforward. It's kind of just a like, this is what you see in the picture. Good?
Works for me.
All right. So that's all the text that's currently on here. We are going to change request 1 in writing for the vote by mail thing. Let me go back to screen sharing the thingy. Is there, so we've kind of covered everything that's on here. Is there anything that is missing that needs to be on here? Great. It's nice silence. I like that. Okay, cool. So then I have this list of changes to implement, which we are going to do. And then it will get sent out to everyone again. And we'll go from there. Just to mention it to people, what I am thinking in terms of printing is that this gets UV coding is a really good thing for mailers. So it'll be on cardstock because it'll be like a card. It's not just like a piece of regular printer paper. I like the idea of rounded corners for the reason of it not getting caught on things and crumpled. Most print shops can do that. It also kind of goes with the design of these boxes. Probably it should be something UV coated, so that'll make it a little bit weather resistant if it gets wet or rained on or raindrops or whatever. Probably something matte, so it's not super shiny if possible. If a print shop can only do sort of shiny UV coating, then I probably would say that's better than just raw paper. I saw a hand from Kelly.
Yes. I just have one last question, which is there any benefit in putting on here that the reason why ranked choice voting is happening is because the city voted on it? Like, I'm worried that people are going to get this and pick up the phone and call Barbara and say, Barbara, why are we doing this? And I just wonder if there's any way to say, in 2020 or whenever the 2018 or whenever the election was,
19.
19.
Yeah.
I am just anticipating that also being a question, which is people get this and going, why are we switching to this?
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a people, and they may have forgotten, or maybe they didn't vote in that election because it was an off year.
Yep.
So if that could be somehow put in there for context, you might be able to cut off some of that question and maybe some of the seeking that answer.
You could start that right in the very, very first sentence.
Yeah.
At the 2019 city election, Easthampton voters approved, blah, blah, blah.
I think you could simplify it and just say in 2019,
Yeah,
Easthampton
Easthampton
voters
voters.
approved
The
ranked
use of
choice
ranked choice voting.
Yep,
for single winner races.
there you go.
For single winner. Oh, you could even say here for single winner races with two
Yep.
or more candidates.
No, I would just, yeah, that's true.
And that kind of actually, I think, clarify the whole question about like, well, what about the precinct thing? I think that actually makes more sense now.
Perfect.
Yep.
Beautiful.
So now in your second sentence, though, do you need that because at least two candidates will appear on the ballot?
I mean, it hammers it home, though it is, a bit redundant. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't hate it though.
no, I
Oh.
don't.
I
yeah,
kinda
that's
like it.
good.
Yeah, I like that. Kelly, good suggestion. Thank you.
And it prepares people for what they're going to see
Yes.
when they're
Yep.
voting too, which is never a bad thing, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Great. Great. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. One thing I do want to mention before we close is two other pieces of media, which are an insert that is going to go with mail-in ballots. B is a one-sheet poster for polling locations. We pretty much need to be ready to print those, I would say, also by the next meeting. So,
Well, the insert into the, in with any by mail ballot,
yeah, that doesn't need to be ready.
I'm
by
just gonna be doing that on the copier.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and the posters probably too. I mean, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna spend money, anything I can do on my computer and the copier
Right.
for the polls, we don't need.
Well,
to-
and so, anything for the polls too, we're talking about a vastly fewer copies too. I mean, even if it was something in every voting booth, we're only talking about a few dozen prints of something. We're not talking about hundreds or thousands of pieces of paper. So,
Yeah,
all right.
I'll be getting the absentee ballot, the ballots to start mailing them out, and we don't have many requests up right now.
Right.
It'll be in the middle of October.
Yep. Okay, so we'll plan to have something something to look at our next meeting in terms of both of those, just so we can approve it and it'll be ready and done.
Yeah, and Dan, anything that you can send me, anything, like if I'm gonna work on the page for my election,
Yep.
On the website, whatever, if you have anything that, anything that would be helpful.
Yep. Okay.
Send it along to me.
Okay, I will. I'll send you a copy of also the language that I put together for Ray.
Yep,
As just a draft.
yep, I've got that.
Oh, you got that. Good. Oh, yeah, you were copied on that.
And then Ray had made some changes.
Great.
But
Incorporated some of your changes, Dan, yeah.
Yeah, I think that it still needs a little work, but you know, it's,
Well, I'm under the gun to get this done. I was hoping to get it submitted tomorrow to our activity director to get working in the newsletter that she's working on, so.
what are the seminars? I'm like, not really sure how that's all gonna,
Well, that's our meeting that we'd have at the senior center for people that want to call in
Right.
and sign up for a meeting to come in to learn more about ranked choice voting.
And that's Barbara, you don't have to worry about those. I'm gonna handle those, and you know, with anyone else who wants to join me, but that's basically me and Ray.
okay.
Yeah. I'm committed to being up feet on the ground for those, and I don't expect anyone else, unless they want to commit to it, to do it.
Okay. It looks like he's looking for some dates and times.
No, that's,
Oh, yeah.
no, that's going to be decided by when they have available, the spaces available. So
Right.
they're
That's
discussing.
out of my hands.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I've asked them to try to put that into like the last week, full week of October, and maybe like the week before the end of the week, because I want to make sure that the mailing was out before we had these seminars. So at least the people that got those and they understood that wouldn't have to bother coming to a seminar.
Right.
Yeah.
Good thinking. Cool. All right. Any other either comments about this or new business in general?
I was just gonna say, if there's anything that students can do along the way, and there's anything that I can help as a teacher thinking about this, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm
Okay.
happy to help support in any way using those skills. And also, I always am in favor of getting students involved. And this would be before this election, but also I think thinking long-term,
Yep.
there's going to be more education to do about this. So just keep that in mind.
Now, there are going to be some students voting, right? Because there's some 18-year-olds. So, you know, if there are any students that you know specifically who are going to be voting, please just mention all this to them, and they're going to be receiving these.
Does anyone have an
mail.
opinion on perhaps interested students wanting to be volunteers? I know it might be a long shot on a rare day off for students, but I don't know, maybe someone's amped to, you know,
Well-
maybe they
well,
could be an
Kel-
explainer.
Yeah, Kelly's been wonderful for me in the past, getting some, you know, good people. But I mean, this would have to be kids that you know, just a few, and the ones that are your best.
Yeah,
Right. The ones
You
who
seem
can
to have
really
pretty high
understand it
quality ones.
and explain it to other people, though. Like that would be the role, is
Right.
to like answer questions of voters at the polls.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly her wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
Barbara-
great if there were.
Barbara, we can follow up on that if you
Okay.
want. And you can let me know kind of what you're thinking, whether, you know, obviously I can always work on volunteers in general for you. And then if we did want to have some students doing education, I think I would probably, or some recent graduates who might be local, who really are well versed in. I have some students who are very well versed in ranked choice voting, probably better than me. But that, to me, that would be a select group of students.
Right.
And then if you do need poll workers, you should also let me know, Barbara, as well. We
Okay.
can talk about that. So
Yeah, I think we're gonna be set with that, but I haven't started, you know, I mean, this is gonna be a quieter election too, but I'm picturing like some, you know, people walking around in the lobby before people go in with, we had talked about t-shirts, but maybe hat, or like, you know, helping people understand how they mark their ballots, things like that. Just so when they go to check in, my poll workers don't have to tell every single person, you know, what to do. So I'm hoping to kind of hit them before they get to checking in and actually voting. Yep.
I have a quick question. Tom, are there any questions on this
No.
ballot? There's no
No,
questions? Okay.
it's very simple, and it's, yeah, pretty simple.
Yep. I think that could end up being a blessing too.
Yes.
That could be a very good thing. I'm happy to coordinate too with any students who you think might be good volunteers to do a student training specifically with them. You know, if people who you think have the communication skills and the knowledge, I can kind of go through the basics of like, you know, here's what I've learned talking about RCV to people. Here's what their concerns are going to be. Here's some good guidelines about how to have that conversation. Not in an advocacy way, but in a, you know, practicing explaining it in a way that's not confusing. If there are people who would want to do that and volunteer, I would be more than happy to meet with them to have a, you know, some little event with them before election day to sort of, you know, prep them for.
Okay, let me
that would
think
be
about
like.
that and
Okay.
kind of feel out some of the students who I think obviously like
Cool.
if they've already done with the people, then they're pretty good about communicating. So then it's just a matter of figuring out exactly what we want them to do. So
Yep.
I will think about that and we can check in, Dan, maybe then.
Okay, cool. The other thing I was going to mention is there are going to be 2 next day events that are election related that are going to be brand new for the city. I don't think we're going to need, I don't know, we could probably, we probably aren't going to need manpower for them. Although it probably couldn't hurt to have 1 or 2 volunteer people to do, I don't know. I don't think manpower is going to be a big deal, but it might be interesting to 1 or 2 students to see what these processes are of resolving write-ins and
Of
doing.
course, they're going to be back in school that day.
Oh, that's true. They're not off at that point. Sorry, that's true. Having been out of school for a while, I kind of forget these things.
I think if we can keep that second day as simple as possible, because I mean,
Yeah.
truthfully, I don't really, well, we'll have to see how many, you know, how many ballots we're even really looking at.
Yep.
Beyond
Well,
like.
I know
the-
it's probably not going to be a ton, but there's certainly going to be some. So. Okay, great. We've already scheduled our next meeting, which is currently scheduled for September 30th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. At that meeting, we are going to be looking at other printed material, but also absolutely finalizing a mailer for printing, among other things. All right, any other new business or final thoughts? Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today. You were actually, your suggestions were a very big help, so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And I'm happy to be here. I'll try to make the next meeting if that gets shared with
Cool.
me. And
Yeah, I
I'm
will.
happy. I think those of you who know me know that if you need students and you want students to participate, I am always encouraging students to do that. So
Cool. That's great. And Ray, also, thank you for joining us for this meeting.
I have a question though too for the September 30th meeting. Are you going to email everybody what you have for a mailer at that point in time so we can review it before we meet?
Yes.
Okay.
And Ray, I'll include you on that as well. And Kelly, if you'd like, I can also include you in that too. Okay.
Yeah, or even earlier on that, whenever you get it done.
Oh,
just-
no. It's
Yeah.
going to be as soon as revisions are ready, because
Yeah.
you know, those of you who aren't on the committee as committee members may or may not know this, but we can't deliberate as a quorum outside of meetings. It's a public meeting law thing, but I can send out information and people can individually provide feedback. They could, you know, they can even copy one other person who's on the committee at the same time if they want to, but we can't deliberate on a group email thread. It can only be a one-way communication kind of thing. So that's why the group emails and reply all emails are a little awkward for committees, but we do our best to work around that. So cool. All right, then in that case, I make a motion to close.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ray's just voting. You're here, might as well vote. Why not?
He's just waving.
I think that was everyone. Were there any abstain or no? There weren't. Okay, great. Then meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
Thank you,
Dan.
everybody.
take
All
care.
right.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.